Okay, should be good to go.
Okay, good morning, directors. The Comox Strathcona Waste Management meeting for, excuse me, Thursday, September the 9th. Let's call the meeting to order.
Move adoption of the agenda for
Second.
approval.
Director Lee, thank you.
Wally.
Director Wally, thank you. Any errors or any to add? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. In camera, adoption of the minutes for the management board on dated June 17th. Move for adoption.
Move adoption.
Move adoption, Evans.
Wally and Evans, thank you. Any errors, omissions? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, no petitions or delegations. Under reports. First item is Comox Strathcona Waste Management Advisory Committee. Minutes of the
Receipt of
Comox.
minute.
Director Lee. Seconder.
Second, Hamilton.
Thank you. Any discussion? Got some hands up. Director Bissinger.
Sure, thank you. Just in relation to what was discussed on page 3 of the report, so Comox CEO Jordan Wall asked about a potential to reinstate the Canix. And I guess we see this when sort of like a trifecta of events have occurred in the Comox area, so also affecting Area B residents and Courtenay residents as well. So we've had the Canix recycling depot closing. We've had some challenges with the curbside collection, which I acknowledge are getting a lot better, at least in the last couple of weeks that I've seen. And then also the Anderton Return at Depot actually changing what they're taking to only refundable. So you can't actually bring cardboard, plastics or anything there either. So, you know, this means that it's creating a lot more traffic in the Courtenay Return at Depot. And I'm scared that this is going to result in dumping, also unnecessary discarding of recyclables in the garbage as well as in the dump. So I'm just trying to figure out, you know, what solutions could staff provide? Can we reinstate an interim solution at the Canix? Understanding, you know, there might be long-term plans for the site, but at the moment it is not being used. So perhaps having reduced hours, but having it manned just until, you know, the Anderton Return at Depot gets figured out, as well as we can be reassured that the challenges with the curbside pickup are dealt with. So maybe just a question to the CAO for comment.
Yeah, I'll go to staff. James.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Director, for the question. I wonder if I could ask Vivian Shaw, our Senior Manager of CSWM Services, to comment on this. It certainly has been a topic of conversation at advisory levels and with the CAOs, and I think, Vivian, you probably have some response available.
This is certainly an issue that's been very of a hot button topic here in the Valley. So just in the way of an update for the the Comox Bottle Depot, I just got word from Recycle BC that they are going to start accepting Recycle BC depot products on an interim basis for the next 2 months to fulfill the requirements of their contract. I'm just waiting for confirmation that as to when they're going to start doing that. This is just based on the contract requirements before they can terminate that service. In the interim, though, we are looking at doing a community-wide recycling accessibility study to make sure that there is equal access to recycling options for residents throughout the region. That study is currently underway, and we're hoping to be able to provide that report back in, I want to say October, but I think that's the more realistic timeline is probably December. But further to your comment about the curbside recycling, and I'll provide a much more in-depth update in the 4th report, I believe it is. From what I understand, I just spoke with the City of Courtenay, and they are seeing the reestablishment of regular curbside collection service throughout the city, and I can attest to the Royston service as well. And we've been able to confirm that is the case for Comox. So again, I'll be able to provide further update in the subsequent reports, but there are, so we are working through those operational challenges at this time. We're hoping to be able to provide a more reasonable access for residents all across the electoral areas, including Comox as well.
Okay, thank you. I've got Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks. I too have similar comments as Alternate Director Bissinger. I think we're all noticing that things are definitely not optimal in our service region regarding the management of both garbage collection, recycling, and then recycling facilities. And it's correct, Royston was affected as well in my service area, and I got a few calls about that. Reading the advisory committee minutes, it's clear that the staff also see the different challenges. My mind is starting to shift drastically because I think we have such a different patchwork of solutions across the CSWM area, and we don't seem to have a consistent vision around how we facilitate garbage and recycling, and it's further compounded by there being different stakeholders, private stakeholders, Recycling BC, the province. So for this board, I'll just plant the seed. I know we're heading into a second session of the strategic planning, but my mind is starting to drift. As a board, both across Strathcona and Comox, would we want to look at a public solution and consistency across the board around how we service things? There will always be exceptions, but it seems to me for the size of municipalities and regions that we have, that it still feels like we're so far from an optimal solution. And I'm not sure if tweaking things, I appreciate the reopening of Canex and things like that, but I think we're past the stage of tweaking, and we need a bit of a rethink around how we collect and facilitate garbage and recycling across the whole region. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Director Grant.
Yeah, and I think just to compound that a bit, it's my understanding that the Return at Depot in Comox is not going to be able to renew their lease in their current premises. So within the next year or two, that facility will probably shut down, and we'll have to start looking at finding a new location. In talking to James, of course, nobody wants them, right? Nobody wants a return in their area. So it's creating really, like, the challenges are getting bigger, not smaller. Now, with the pickup, I think that with the recycling pickup, I think that they probably come to a resolution that's going to work, and I think we just need to give it a little bit of time to see. But I've done quite a bit of research on how this all happened, and I think they've resolved quite a bit of that. So time will tell, but I think that we're moving in the right direction on that. But the recycling depots are going to be a real challenge for us in Comox if we don't have somewhere to go.
Okay, thank you. And Director Hamir.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to echo what Director Arbor just mentioned about considering a public solution to this long-term issue. But my question was around the comment that staff made around conducting a recycling accessibility study. And I'm just wondering what benefit that would be, and why would we conduct a study without, I think, we know from our constituents that there is much reduced recycling access, especially in the Comox and Area B areas. So what benefit would a study be over just implementing maybe even just a short-term solution?
Okay, I'm gonna go to staff. James.
Vivian, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on this, but I think the study does provide some parameters and better understanding of those specific solutions that we might be able to provide. But Vivian, is there any sort of context around the results of what that study would offer?
Right now, we're really diving deep into understanding exactly where all of the different EPR programs and where they're offered throughout the region, and being able to identify a regional solution so that, and to be able to identify an optimum location to be able to best service the area, looking into using a potentially the remoteness index so that we can ensure that there is the best, if the facility is located in the most optimal location for accessibility for area B and C residents as well.
Okay, thank you. That sort of answers. It sounded like initially that you were looking at the demand side and.
Oh no, we definitely understand that the demand is very much there. We also we're hesitant to provide temporary solutions because it does, once we put something in place, especially if it is CanEx, there is that expectation that it'll be really hard to take away. As you can appreciate, when we went through the closure of the 4 CSWM unstaffed depots, it was quite a challenge. And to reinstate those and then to take it away again would be very challenging. So we want to, whatever we do end up providing, we definitely want it to be more of a long-term solution.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. And Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been getting called by constituents grateful that the Oyster River Depot is available. People want to be able to recycle at the recycle bins, and they don't understand why the Comox Strathcona Solid Waste Service took away all those bins and why Campbell River took away their bins. There was at first, when Campbell River's recycle depots at the Sportsplex and the Strathcona Gardens, when they both closed, there was a lot of pressure on Oyster River, but Oyster River seems to have risen to that occasion. And we have a person who lives at the old fire hall who's been doing voluntary cleanup. And in exchange for his cleanup, I drop my bottles and cans to him. And so do a lot of people. So there's a bit of a symbiotic relationship with the person on site. And it seems to be going, it's had some glitches at first, but I think it's going well. And I'm really glad we still have the Oyster River Depot. Really glad. And I wish we could get more because that's what the public wants.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands up for discussion, so I'll call question on the receipt. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 2, Regional Organics Compost Project Budget Amendment and Update. Motion to receive the report. Director Grant, Director Morin, and I'll go to staff.
I'm on mute, so.
Actually, Jeff, I think you're not on mute. Thanks, Mr. Chair. And Cole Mackinson, our manager of CSWM Capital Projects, will be able to introduce this staff report and then undertake the discussion. Cole?
Thank you. So the staff report is recommending a budget increase of $2.818 million for the construction of the regional compost facility and transfer station. So fall last year, the design engineering firm Sperling Hansen was awarded a contract for the detailed design of the regional compost facility and transfer station. Since last fall, we've completed the preliminary design and the phase 2 public consultation with the public and First Nations in the area. We've amended the solid waste management plan supporting the construction of the compost facility and transfer station. We've obtained the development permits with Campbell River and the Village of Cumberland for construction of these facilities. And we've completed the detailed design and tendered process for the compost facility and transfer station. So throughout the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic has seen large price increases in the construction industry. And throughout the design, we've been committed on finding cost reductions while maintaining strict environmental controls for odor and groundwater protection. The compost facility and transfer station were tendered separately this summer and closed in August. The total project budget, including the engineering, is over the approved current budget, and we're looking to amend this to move forward with construction this fall. The current construction schedule with the tenders would have completion of the facilities this fall and or next summer and fall. And so we're looking to move this forward. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, on receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And on the recommendation?
Move the recommendation, Cole Hamilton.
Second, McCollum.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I can't find my hand thing, view options.
Okay, go ahead.
It's Director Lee, thank you. I'm opposed to spending more money on this project. We were given a just over $6 million grant. And it was a $12 million project, I believe, in the beginning. Now we've skyrocketed up to, 17.3 million and wanting another 2 million plus for this because of increased construction costs. And this reminds me of the escalating costs when we were building the landfill cells and how much money was millions of dollars being spent on trying to get those built. And I think we need to pause and put this project on hold until we figure out what's going on with the construction and labor market so that we're not paying inflated amounts for installing this organics facility, which I think is environmentally unsound anyway, because we're using fossil fuels to transport organics for many miles, and it's not environmentally friendly. I never did support it, and I don't support spending more money on it.
Okay, thank you. I have Director Adams.
Thank you, Chair, and appreciating the comments of Director Lee. I will be supporting this. To pause will only drive the costs even further up, and to abandon the project would be throwing money out the window. In regards to the emissions through the transportation, I would hope that in future years we will get a report as to how we can convert those vehicles that are going back and forth to either electric or hybrid vehicles that are more emission friendly. But today we're just dealing with the facility, and I fully support it going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Director Hamir.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks to Director Adams for that too. I also support the recommendation, but a question to staff. If we did delay this, just wondering what would happen to the grant, the $6 million grant that we have from the province. So that's question one. And question two, Director Lee mentioned 17 million plus 2 million. I just want to confirm that the budget, including the increase, is 17 million.
I'll go to staff.
Yeah. So sorry, am I jumping in? No. Thanks. Yeah, so for the grant, if we don't award this, we would need further recommendation on a process and timeline. We've been in contact, and the granting agency has allowed for an extension once we have a firm timeline of our construction. But if we don't award this with no direction of when to proceed, that would definitely put it in risk for the grant. And then for the budget, yes, the 17.3 is the total budget for construction and engineering. It's not 17.3 plus.
Great, thank you. Director Mogulov.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I too support the recommendation, and obviously disappointed that the cost has increased so significantly, but the way I look at this particular project, just looking from what I would say is the big picture, I sort of see our solid waste service in many ways sort of way behind the times. Like this should have been done so many years ago. And I know it's taken a long time to get to this point for a variety of reasons, but it is what it is. This project is vital to the progress that we're going to hopefully make in our solid waste service in terms of the diversion. This is hugely important. And so I certainly urge my fellow directors to support this, even though it is obviously a significant increase in the budget.
Thank you. And I have Director Evans.
Thank you, Chair. And similar comments to what directors have already said, but even in the report, the management report that we approved earlier today, there is great concern around the need for this to move forward in order for us to meet our diversion goals. There's some discussion around Campbell River looking at having to delay potentially if this does not move forward in terms of what we're looking to offer to all of our residents and businesses. So I think I will be supporting this motion. It's just part of what so many construction projects are impacting communities as we move forward. And I agree with Director Adams that waiting is not going to mean that the costs are going to be lower. In fact, I think there's going to be higher competitiveness for labor and materials. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Director Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm opposed to this recommendation simply because even though it's a benefit to all of us, because it would remove material that otherwise would go into the landfill, I feel it's a disproportionate benefit to the electoral areas who will not utilize this service. It's of great value or greater value to the municipality. So as electoral area director, I don't have any support for it whatsoever.
Thank you, Director. And I have Director Kerr.
Thank you, Chair. And just to confirm, in the staff report, it says with the receipt of tenders, project costs are now well-defined with firm pricing and construction schedules in hand. So just to confirm that that there aren't any surprises, that this is a for sure firm price, and we're not going to be looking at another increase in 6 months.
What staff?
The recommendation before the board with the project budget of 17.3 million does give staff the ability to proceed through the procurement, and that is the fixed project budget price.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any further questions. So I'll call question on
Mr. Chair, I have a second question, a brief one. There in the report, it says that no estimate of tipping costs have been presented with this project. So not only is this going to cost 17.3 million to construct it, it's going to cost the public money to tip at that location. And I would like to know what the cost is going to be for the public before we go running ahead with this. There's no tipping fees identified.
No, go to staff.
Cole or Vivian, are you able to speak to the process for identifying those tipping fees and then how that factors into the funding for this particular aspect of the CSWM service?
Yeah, that's I can speak to that. So we've been working with municipalities throughout the year or the past couple of years on this and working with them directly with for the tipping fees. And so the operations will be funded by tipping fees. So it's not under the capital costs. And we're looking at a tipping fee below the waste. So it is a savings potentially for the municipalities.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further questions. I'll call question on recommendation. Is anyone opposed?
Well, opposed.
Lee is
Paul is
opposed.
opposed. Lee's opposed.
Abram opposed.
Abram's opposed. I don't see anyone else, so the motion is carried. Thank you. On to the next item. Thanks, James. Number 3, reasonable access to recycling for residents. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt, Hillian.
Thank you. Seconder. Oren, thank you. And I'll go to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Vivian Shaw, our Senior Manager of CSWM Services, is able to introduce this staff report and material. Vivian?
So the CSBC group is an informal alliance of industry product organizations.
Vivian, you're awfully
We
quiet.
can't
I wonder
hear.
if, yeah.
So sorry, the SABC group is an informal alliance of industry product stewardship organizations that represent many products that are
Still, sorry, Vivian, you're still awfully quiet. I wonder if there's a way you can either adjust the microphone or.
Sorry about that. Is this better?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the CSABC group is a formal alliance of industry product stewardship organizations that represent many of the products that are currently accepted at the depots. And they recently updated their guidance on accessibility document. The BC Stewardship Council, which is a coalition of regional district, which we are the CSWM Services a part of, highlighted a number of omissions from that recent update, which the organization prepared without a formal consultation process. Their focus is really the delivery of the programs to meet regulatory requirements in a cost-effective manner. And one of the key requirements of the recycling regulation is for the EPR programs to provide a reasonable and free consumer access to recycling facilities. And for the CSWM service, in our opinion, the updated document doesn't satisfy the reasonableness clause, as it proposes that EPR programs are only provided to remote communities, quote unquote, where practical. So which would essentially cover most of the island. While this document is not, this guidance document isn't a standard, and nor is it a regulatory requirement under the recycling regulation. So it's not subject to ministerial approval. A lot of the EPR agencies refer to this document in their respective programs and really regard this as the standard. So to that end, we would like to provide our formal feedback, specifically requesting a commitment for improved accessibility for remote communities, and to support the Regional District of Nanaimo's proposed use of the remoteness index rather than the distance circles, which is referenced in their document, to effectively determine the actual levels of service that's required to meet a community's needs. So this remoteness index is a tool that's been developed by Statistics Canada and is a more effective tool in determining the actual level of service that's required to meet the needs of the community based on a number of factors, predominantly the proximity to economic hubs, the challenges to non-road access, which a lot of our remote and island communities face. And it also reflects the use of urban facilities and resources of nearby rural residents. So yeah, that sums it up. So I'm open for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Vivian. Is there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And on the recommendation.
Move the recommendation.
Second, Edwin.
Moved by Hamir, second by Edwin. Any discussion? Director Lee?
You're muted, Director Lee.
Have to unmute Brenda.
Is there any consideration of frequency of pickup in the remote communities? Because obviously if you have a much smaller population in a remote community such as, say, Zavalis has 82 people, you're not going to have to pick up every week. Perhaps there could be some cost savings in transportation by considering not only that we want locations for recycling in the remote communities, but that they may not need the frequency of pickup that happens in areas that are more populated.
Local staff.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that's taken into consideration. We certainly understand that for these smaller communities, service levels will not match those of more populous areas, urban communities. But what we're asking is that there is a commitment from the SABC for some form of a tiered and funded solution so that the regional districts aren't burdened with the transportation costs. But in terms of the frequency levels, you're absolutely right. Like the service levels aren't really, those are up for a discussion. We understand it, it's not feasible, but we are just looking for something of more equitable access across our region.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay,
Could I respond to that?
Go ahead, Director Davis.
Sorry, I can't find the hand function on this for some reason. Certainly in Tassus, people are very much into recycling, and I'm finding, if anything, we need more service because our bins are often overflowing by the time pickup happens, which I believe is once a week, although staff could probably educate me on that. But we're getting overwhelmed by the amount of recycling, so I would like to correct Director Lee on that, at least in regard to my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Davis. Don't see any further questions. I'll call question on the recommendation. Is anyone opposed? Hearing none, carried. Item 4, Quadra Community Engagement and Recycling Transition Update.
Move receipt, Billy.
Second, Walling.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Stephanie Valdell, our services coordinator for CSWM, will be able to present this information to the board. Stephanie?
Good morning. Through the CAO to the chair and board, I'd like to update the board on the most recent community engagement that's taken place on Quadra. So the service hosted 2 informal and 2 formal depot sessions, talking to residents at the existing recycling depot on Quadra, also explaining the potential for a conversion to a Recycle BC depot. That was done in June and July. And we also initiated a month-long survey for the month of July, requesting residents answer some questions about the conversion and go through some ideas on operational hours, as well as the facility being properly gated and staffed. The survey results were actually very good. Just over 96% of residents are in support of the conversion. The survey results also indicated that there are some residents that are throwing away depot-only items such as foam, film, glass, and other flexible plastic packaging. So staff are confident at this time that if the depot conversion does go through, it will increase diversion of single-use items on Quadra. The next steps will be proceeding with 2 town hall meetings. Those have been booked for October 4th and October 18th. And staff are currently monitoring all public health orders to ensure we'll be in compliance with COVID safety rules for those events. Staff will then report out at the December board with recommendations on how to proceed. Are there any questions at this time?
Thank you, and Director Abram.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Vivian, for that, and Stephanie for that. I first of all, I have to say that I'd like to give special recognition to Vivian and Stephanie for the incredible work that they've been doing on Quadra Island. They're superstars, and the CBRD is lucky to have them. I'd also like to thank your senior staff, mainly Russ, for his incredible cooperation. He's kept his word on how we're going to proceed at all times. And he has engaged as per our many discussions. The one thing I will say right away, though, is that, well, first of all, I just want to mention to Vivian that I have been posting the CVRD and the SRD communications material on my Facebook site and in the Discovery Islander, our local newspaper, in my reports section twice a month. So we're really trying to get the word out there to everybody. The 96% of residents, it should actually be 96% of residents surveyed, which was about less than 250 people out of 3,000 roughly. So, you know, it's everybody that was at the recycling sites on those dates. On the dates that you've mentioned for the public engagement, the town hall public engagements, these dates need to be moved due to the vaccine passport issue and the dates that have been set now by the province. So we're going to need to be looking at very late November very late October or early November to be holding any SRD, CVRD public town halls at that time. So we're going to have to work on that one. I guess you can call Rebecca at the community center. There's a couple points from the report I'd just like to comment on. From the report, it says upon completion of the town hall meetings, operational details and facility siting will be finalized and reported out at the December CSWM board meeting. I think this has to also depend on input from the director to the staff in collaboration with staff, not just input to staff from perhaps various members of the community. This needs to be a site that is readily accessible to everyone. Also from the report, staff estimate incentives from a recycled BC depot on Quadra Island to be between $10,000 and $18,000. What I'm confused about is that this does not tell us about the additional waste collected, which is mentioned in the report, and how that relates to the increased revenue. Is the overall depot as a new style recycle BC depot cheaper or more expensive than the existing depot collection? So that's another question for you. You can just list these, just two more. From the report, the unstaffed CSWM depot is plagued with illegal dumping and high level of contamination of otherwise recyclable materials, which is resulting in a large portion of this material being landfilled. I have to mention here that this is entirely due to the changeover from when we went from divided bins to single source collection, single stream collection, which basically just stuffed everything into a compactor dumpster and was taken off. And of course, it was contaminated. It wasn't contaminated when it went into the bins. So our product used to be, according to the CVRD, one of the best products that was collected at all of the recycling depots in our regional district. So, you know, I think that that's a glitch in the way we're doing business right now. And I think that will change with Recycle BC. The final few pages are old info and do not include the addition of a second town hall meeting. And there are other changes in that part of the report that no longer apply and should be noted as being previous information and disregarded in relation to the existing report. And I must state that this possible transition is not a foregone conclusion. We will still be discussing this locally, and we'll see which method the broader island prefers. These results only cover less than 10% of the population, the town hall meetings, the 2 town hall meetings will, I'm sure, bring out a far greater proportion of the population, and you'll get a far better idea. The same with the survey. It was, only about, it was less than 250 respondents. So, I can't really, as the director for the area, base the needs of over 3,000 people based only on under 10% of the population. So, but it's a good start. It was an excellent process going to the sites. People loved it, having an opportunity to talk to CVRD staff about recycling. And now we're going to have an EPR weekend on the 2nd and 3rd of October, where all of those unwanted items that people would have to take to Campbell River will be able to actually deposit right here on Quadra Island, and it's very much appreciated by myself and by the community. And I want to thank the Comox Strathcona, Comox Valley Regional District Solid Waste Management Service for providing such a very wonderful opportunity for all of us. So thank you. And I hope that, Vivian, if you didn't get all of my questions, I can cut and paste them and email them to you, and then you will have them to have a look at.
Thank you, Director Abram. Local staff.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Director Abram, for your comments and your support for this project. It certainly has required a lot of attention and support from staff, and so I appreciate your recognition. I'll ask Vivian or Stephanie to comment on your questions around costs and how the rebates factor in. I do want to reflect on the town hall dates that are suggested. And certainly we're very much aware of the public health order and the impact around the vaccine passport requirements are having on those activities at our recreation facilities, for example, and understanding how best to proceed with those sorts of activities. The town halls that are planned and have had a significant amount of work in preparation for those town halls, we will be able to conduct those with the public health order in mind and the vaccine passport requirements. We're working through those logistics and those details, and so just given that momentum that we have in the community around, you're right, the respondents to the survey, not necessarily all of the public, but the momentum in the community is giving us good reason to proceed with the town halls as presented. And maybe I can ask then Vivian or Stephanie to provide some comment on the rebates and how that factors into the costs. And if there was any other specifics, sorry, Director Abram, if there's any other specifics that can be addressed here.
Before you go into that, could I just make one subsequent comment, and that is that we just at our board yesterday, we did pass a resolution that we will not be having these type of meetings as a raising of the bar over the provincial mandated information that we received. So, and apparently, according to our CAO, we do have the right to do that. So that's why we have asked, or I am asking, that we change those dates into November to make it correspond with the rest of our public hearing, et cetera, regulation. So I am going to be asking you to please reconsider those dates.
Okay, we'll go to staff.
So as far as the incentives, staff provided a comparative analysis of other communities with similar fluctuating populations, particularly seasonal populations. And we looked at the volumes of materials that are collected at those facilities. The incentives do include the depot only items like glass, foam, film, and other flexible plastic packaging. And as of recently, some of those incentives have actually increased by Recycle BC. And so we can most certainly do another analysis and try and come up with a better guesstimate. Unfortunately, we don't know how many residents on Quadra are currently recycling or recycling depot only items in Campbell River. So we are hoping that the incentives will be much higher. We did take a more conservative approach. As far as the communications plan, that was just the plan that was received at the last board meeting when we did the initial report for the Quadra Depot conversion. So we can certainly look at updating that communications plan if need be. And then as far as the contamination, one thing we have noted at CSWM depots across the board is that there is some confusion with residents as far as what is a depot only item. So at our CSWM depots, where glass, foam, film, and flexible plastic packaging is not accepted, we are seeing residents leave that material there. It's material that is recyclable through a Recycle BC program, but unfortunately not at these depots. That material does count towards our contamination and does have to go into garbage.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments on the report? Director Grieve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess this goes through staff to Vivian. I know we talked about bylaw 170, which is the bylaw that prohibits recyclables being deposited at the landfill. And I think the question was how much contamination and how many recyclables are ending up in the landfill. And I know we did our garbage composition report back a few years ago and it was very high in rural areas. But I seem to recall at a previous meeting you saying around 18% of what's going in the landfill shouldn't go in there at the present time, and that includes municipalities. Is that correct?
From what I understand, the contamination was based on the materials coming from the unstaffed depots. That's roughly around 18%, but that's based on unattended collection sites.
Yeah, so it might be useful to get an up-to-date analysis of that. When we say 18%, and we're talking about another $8.5 million for another cell, I think the public has to realize that this is not free. That we need to grow up and bear down on what we're doing with recycling. As per Director Arbor, I think we have to have a whole rethink on this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Director Morin.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess my thoughts right now are around the ways of gathering the feedback and surveys. Just thinking about surveys because I tuned into Town of Comox's meeting last night on urban agriculture where there was survey results. So I guess when I see the number and of course Director Abrams talking about how it's quite a small number compared to the number of residents, I guess I'm wondering how you capture more opinions, because of course we always have surveys and when we have surveys, we do base decisions often on the results of those surveys, and often the number of people who participate is quite low. So I don't know how we get around that. I mean, I certainly want to be supportive of the wishes of Quadra residents and what the majority wants. So I guess one question is around the town hall and how we differentiate between people attending that and whether we're getting any new opinions, or if staff have any other ideas on how to get a broader range of responses from the public. I guess those would be my main questions, because surveys and gathering feedback, of course, is really difficult to gauge what the majority wants. So just your thoughts on that. Thank you.
We'll go to staff.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, you're absolutely correct. That consultation feedback is critical to understand the wishes of the Quadra residents. So we have, as you can see through the engagement plan, there are a series of engagement opportunities that we've afforded residents, and through the town hall is another avenue that we're hoping to be able to seek that feedback from Quadra residents. As Director Abram had mentioned, there is a series, so we're trying to reach residents through a variety of different channels, whether through print media, social media, and we're really going to be advertising this event so that we can get that feedback from residents. In addition to that, Stephanie had hosted I believe 2, and there's another event coming up in September, or sorry, yeah, September now, where she'll be on site with our educator as well to promote the service, but also to be able to be available in person to answer questions. But yes, if there are any other suggestions, we definitely welcome that feedback.
May I have a quick follow-up? I guess I'm wondering, is there a way to determine through these various engagement processes whether you're getting the same people at all the, engaging in all these ways, or are you able to kind of tease those apart, I guess is one question. And then the other question was, in this type of process, what is considered a reasonable kind of percentage of feedback to base these kind of decisions on? It's just a question I have around the process. Thanks.
I wonder if I could ask Christiane Weil, our Manager of External Relations, to provide some context around these surveys and just more generally the engagement process when it comes to trying to solicit information and undertake consultation.
Yes, certainly. I'll just check and make sure everybody can hear me. My microphone's working.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, great. Thanks for that question. This is something in local government that we do struggle with in terms of how to get our residents interested and come out and comment and participate in these consultation events. What we find is the most successful is to offer a wide range of activities, because there's a certain type of individual that only wants to come out to an in-person event, and that's what they're comfortable with. And there are others that say, I don't want to come out to that, or I don't have time, or the timing doesn't work for me, and I want to do online. So I think in reviewing this Quadra communications plan that our staff have put together, it is a really balanced approach in terms of doing the in-person events actually at the location of the facility. So we're capturing people who use the facility, which is a really important audience. And Stephanie has several opportunities that, she's executed or planned to execute. So, that's reaching one group of people. That's excellent. We've had the online survey option for those who maybe, don't want to come out to a specific town hall. So they have the option to get back to us online. And then we do have the town hall events that, we'll hope to schedule at a time that will be appropriate with the public health regulations and following Director Abrams' recommendations.
I'm sorry, it didn't really answer the teasing out part. Do you have a mechanism in place to, at the town hall, say, have you provided feedback on the survey, to sort of tease that out? I do agree that the process with all the various forms is excellent, and I know staff is doing an amazing job. I'm just curious about how that information is being teased out between the various methods.
That is something that we can do. We can ask, residents as they come into the town hall, or maybe as they register, there is a way we can ask that question. If they have filled out a survey before, I like the problem with it is it's difficult to cross-reference, right? So someone says that they have filled out a survey, and then depending on the username that they've used to fill out that survey, like it would be really difficult to go back and then, eliminate that question out of the responses. So there's no, from a data collection perspective, there's no simple way to do that. Which is why when we report back on the results for our public consultations, we make sure that we report back kind of each element separately. So report back on the results of the open house, and then report back on the results of the online consultation. It is a challenge. You could have somebody come out to the open house as well as the online consultation and gather that that feedback twice, but kind of the way around it is we just make sure to report back on those tools individually within the report that comes back to the directors.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other first-time speakers, but I have Director Abram.
Yes, thank you. Just very quickly, thank you very much, Director Moran, for that great question about the same people. That is, an issue. It could be the same people that have come out to all four opportunities and given comment, and then of course they get added in, and that's fine. What the town hall will do is it'll bring out more people, and you'll get a much broader, larger sampling of the community as to how they feel about the different options that are being offered. So I think it's the cross-referencing. I don't envy staff in any way in trying to do that. That would be pretty difficult. The town halls, though, I think will be the sort of, I guess, the better way of gauging the opinion, because people play off of each other as they speak, and they think of things that they didn't think of, and all that kind of thing. All know how it is at a public meeting, large public meeting, and people are looking forward to these large public meetings to start up hopefully in November. The one comment I just wanted to make was the comment about the waste and going to landfill, and it was mentioned in the report, and I forgot to mention it. Unstaffed depot. This is not presently an unstaffed depot. It may be by some definition of Recycle BC or whatever, but we do have staff there, and he's not there full time, but he is there to keep an eye on things, to direct people, to educate people, and to keep the site absolutely tidy. So, we do have that part of it, and he does an amazing job of resorting people's goods that they have mistakenly put in the wrong bins, and they should not be there. So, we try and keep that to a bare minimum, and that's done very well by our current contractor, who is contracted through the CSWM service.
Thank you, Director.
That's about it. I just wanted to make sure that we know that there are various ways of gathering information, and it's all put together by our wonderful communications and otherwise staff.
Great, thank you, Director Abram. I don't see other questions, so I'll call receipt on the report. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 5, request to waive fees for City of Courtenay resident yard waste drop-off. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Director Lee. Seconder.
Second, Sullivan.
Thank you. And I'll go to staff.
And Vivian, if you're able to introduce this report, please.
Thank you, James. Through the chair and to the board. The city had requested that the CSWM service waive the yard waste tip fee for Courtenay residents at the Comox Valley Waste Management Center in response to the recent service disruption experienced by the city's curbside waste collection contractor, Mterra. Mterra is with the rest of the waste management industry. They've been challenged by labor shortages, which has really negatively impacted the service level across not just Comox Valley, but up in Campbell River as well. But while all the municipalities across the valley and Campbell River felt the impacts of this service disruption, the effects were definitely much more pronounced in the city of Courtenay, just given their sheer size and the collection of the collection frequency of the 3 waste streams. And to that end, the CEOs worked really closely together with Mterra to reset the expectations and reestablish regular curbside collection service. Specifically to the city of Courtenay, staff undertook an extraordinary measures to address the issue of missed collections by temporarily deploying their public works staff to collect yard waste for residential properties the week of August 23rd. And shortly after that letter was issued, we met with MTerra to really clearly understand the measures that were put in place to remedy the situation in the short term, and also to ensure that there are sustained solutions for the service. And from what we've been able to see, through the CBRD contract and also from the member municipalities, we started to see improvements and the reestablishment of that service across the region, and we are continuing to monitor that. So based on the reestablishment of the service, we are recommending that we do not that we're going to continue to support the receipt of a processing of the yard waste pursuant to our current fees and charges bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Director Hillian?
Thank you, Chair. I think the request is now redundant and I support the recommendation, but I'm just curious why we don't see the correspondence item attached to the report.
Staff?
Sorry, Director's just checking that the correspondence certainly was posted to the CSWM Director's website and available there.
I just checked it this morning and didn't find it there.
Oh, my apologies. I understood that it had been posted. We absolutely did receive the correspondence, which generated this staff report, and the staff report captures what the request was. But yeah, notably, we could have attached that correspondence to this report.
Yeah, fair enough. I just hadn't seen the letter, so I wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Cool. Now, Director Grant.
Now I'm on, okay. I'm not going to vote in favor of this, but if this does pass, can you add Comox to the list? Because we've had the exact same issues as Courtney. I think that when you look at the garbage pickup, it all goes down to the shifting of days, and not just the step holiday one, but there was another shift earlier that now has recycle pickup in Courtney and Comox on the same day, and that never happened. That was a big part in burdening MTerra to be able to get the pickup, and that's part of what got them behind. The other part was that they took on a couple of new contracts just before COVID. I think that at a staff level, they've got most of that issue straightened away. So I think that this issue, if we just follow it a little more, you'll find that it's largely fixed.
Okay, thank you. Director Morin.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm satisfied with the rationale outlined in the report for the recommendation. Of course, this came to light because you know, a lot of our residents were concerned about being charged twice, basically, being charged for their pickup and then having to be charged again to take their mounting, sorry, I shouldn't say garbage, I mean yard waste mainly. And, you know, of course, our city staff have, you know, we've incurred a lot of costs with our having to deploy our staff. So I think it may be redundant in that the issue seems to be resolved right now, but it doesn't really resolve the extra costs involved and costs to the taxpayers. So I think it's something we definitely need to monitor, and I understand it's not an easy solution to waive tipping fees. I could get into a debate with Director Grant about the comparison between Courtney and Comox, but all the communities that have been impacted have been impacted severely. So I just want to keep this on our radar because we don't want to be passing on more costs to the taxpayer and causing an inconvenience to them. Many residents had 3-4 weeks worth of pickup missed, and we have daily pickup, so that's a lot of waste that was piling up and causing problems. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Madam Director Amir.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question to clarification. I heard a comment about not supporting the recommendation. So my understanding is if we support the recommendation, we are asking that the tipping fees be continued and not waived. But if you don't support the recommendation, you're supporting a waiving of the fees. Is that correct?
Thanks, Director. The recommendation in the staff report is that the CSWM service continue to support the receipt and processing of yard waste pursuant to the fees and charges bylaw to fund the cost of the service. And this is in direct response to the City of Courtenay's request to waive the tip fees. But as the report explains and as Vivian explained, the recommendation is to not waive those fees, but to continue on with the fees and charges service bylaw.
Thanks for the clarification, and just want to send my support to the City of Courtenay. They did a really above and beyond job of cleaning up where the private sector kind of left them in a lurch. So recognizing how much cost that was to the city, and hopefully we come up with a long-term solution that we don't have to go through this again. So thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't see any further questions on receipt. Oh, sorry, Director Grant.
So another issue that we've been looking at, because we actually had our staff out picking up garbage as well, was we had a lot of complaints from our commercial customers. And I don't know if all the contracts are the same, but our commercial and our residential are all tied in the same contract. And something that we'd like to look at in the future is to release the commercial guys from that and let them go independently. Because, when you have the Comox Mall or even the Church Street Tap House and they're not getting picked up for 3 days or a week and their garbage is sitting out right at the entrance of their establishments, or in the mall's case, lots of food waste and stuff in the garbage and rats and rodents and everything else going, it's just not adequate for them not to get picked up. And so we had many of our commercial customers come and ask us if there was a way to get released so they could bring their own private contractors in, which is done in many communities, by the way. So it's something we'll be looking at.
Great, thank you. I don't see any further questions, so I'll call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? See none carried. And the recommendation?
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Lillian? And McCallum, second, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Carried. Item 6, CSWM Management Report. Director Grant moves it, seconder.
Second.
Director Amir, thank you. And I'll go to staff.
And directors, we're here for any questions that you may have on the management report itself.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, how do I raise my hand?
Go ahead and speak, Director Cornfield.
Oh, okay, thank you. I had 2 items. On the item 3, the pilot program, and it goes back to a request in June of 2020, I believe, for providing the price evaluation and the other relevant considerations respecting the finished compost material from the organics collection pilot project. Was supposed to be, that was a pilot program, and the pilot program was supposed to have ended ages ago, and that's been over a year since we had a report back on the effectiveness, and I just wondered if staff could comment on that.
Staff?
Thanks, Director. I wonder if Mark Rutten, our General Manager of Engineering Services, or Vivian, if you've got a specific update on this particular topic around the pilot project.
Yeah, it's Mark Rutten here. So we are, as mentioned during the presentation on the organics project, we will be bringing back a staff report that talks about the tipping fee. So once we analyze the different contract options and are able to determine those costs more accurately, we'll be bringing back tipping fee recommendations for the organics and comparing those to what are in place for the pilot program, which is $65 right now for that program. So that's what we plan to do. If there's a different, if that recommendation was to produce something different, it would be great to hear about that from the board. Thanks.
If I can, Mr. Chair, my recollection was that we were having problems disposing of the compost material. In fact, we offered it to one of the farms in the Comox Valley at no charge. And there was a real issue around pricing. What do we do with the finished material? And I thought that was all part of this report as part of a sort of a wrap up to the pilot program. And I'd certainly like to see it before we get into an operational facility that's going to cost us $17 million. So yeah, I'd certainly like to see if anything has changed or how we're going to manage it under the new one, if this is sort of waiting for the report. Anyway, thank you. And then I've got one more, but I will hold that one until others have spoken.
Okay, thank you, Director Cornfield. Director Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just had a question about item number 8, and that's I guess a resolution from September 2019, and part of it is about the roundtable, which we're going to be doing today. But there's a second part which refers to the 7 action items that came from the 2019 roundtable, and there's no reference to the status of them. And I was wondering if Mr. Rutten might be able to give us a brief update on what action was taken on the 7 items from the 2019 roundtable.
Good, Mr. Rutten.
I can maybe just before Mark provides an answer, I don't have those 7 items specifically at the top of my mind. I'd have to go back to that set of minutes and the report. But certainly one of the outcomes overall is that roundtables be conducted on a regular basis for the board's opportunity to have more discussion and dialogue around different topic areas. And I think those topic areas relate to the 7 action items. And so certainly the solid waste plan review, which is the nature of today's roundtable, would be one of those topics coming out of the 7 items, as was the roundtable from June, which talked about construction and demolition and materials diversion. Again, those are some of the topics that would have come out of the 2019 work. So Mark, if you had something more specific, please provide that.
Yeah, I don't, James, have anything more specific than that, but I'll ask Vivian to comment if she can, but otherwise we'd have to report back.
Thank you, Mark. I did a quick glance of the recommendation from the roundtable from 2019, and just echoing the same comments from James. The roundtable, it was one of the commitments, but I don't have full details of all the remaining ones, and we can definitely report on that.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it's my assumption they've probably been taken care of, but if that could be included on the next management report we receive, that'd be really helpful. Thanks so much for the answers.
Okay, thank you. And I have Director Adams.
Thank you, Chair. It's regarding item 5, and it's in reference to the South Campbell River area, and I'm seeing that it has Director Lee and Director Grieve. As this is a South Campbell River, including Area D, I would request that City of Campbell River representatives also be included in those discussions as well, because they cover that area. Thank you.
Good, Mark.
Thanks, Director. We'll make note of that.
Thank you.
Okay, next I have Director Lee.
I was just wondering on the organics pilot project for Cassis and Cortez. Is the intention of this project to allow Cassis and Cortez to use the organic processed finished product on at their communities, or are we transporting it around all over the place by ferry car, etc.? Like, are we going to allow them to use like the organic product without shipping it off Cortez?
Vivian, are you able to address that?
From my understanding, the intention is to be able to encourage residents to be able to use it within their communities. But I'm going to defer this over to Stephanie to elaborate further.
So the current pilot that's taking place on Cassis and Cortez is just to test the feasibility of a local composting program within the communities. And the intention is to also promote food sustainability by providing them with a compost finished material. However, since the initiation of the composting pilot at the Cumberland landfill, we have been utilizing the finished material from the Cumberland pilot to give to those communities. So yes, Cortez, Cassis, Sabalis, Hornby, all of those communities have received finished compost material from Cumberland.
But is it possible to compost them on site, like in Cassis and on Cortez, so you don't have to ship things back and forth?
So we are currently running the composting pilot and we are creating finished compost material. However, in smaller communities, there's such very little finished compost that comes out of a program like that, just because there isn't sufficient food waste. A lot of the volume is lost during the composting process. The liquid comes out, and so you really do only end up with about 10 to 30% by volume of finished compost.
Okay, thank you. And I have Director Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I guess Director Lee took some of the wind out of my sails on this because I was going to speak to the same item. We certainly are using the compost in town, and it is a pilot project. It took a long time to get off the ground. I don't even know if it's been running a year yet. For some reason, there's a lot of delays around COVID and all that. We are interested in keeping the materials in town. We're not interested in shipping them. And actually, I was surprised to find out that we were receiving anything. I'm not sure why that is happening. And I just want to reiterate that I wasn't actually interested in this pilot program. What we really want to see is to build some sort of small facility along the lines of what there is in Cumberland currently, where we have a covered building where we can put the compost along with yard waste, which is chipped, and break the whole thing down and then use it locally, because we were trying to move towards more self-reliance in terms of food production in town. So that's our intent, and I just want to make sure that the staff is aware of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Davis. And Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't know where to fit this one in the in the entire meeting, actually, but under number 2, the placing garbage receptacles and garbage collection at popular beach locations, I noticed you're talking to Parks with and Ministry of Transportation, but there is a connected issue to that, which somebody in Union Bay reminded me of, which is garbage dumping. You know, like it's, and I think we have discussed updating our fines or illegal dumping rules, and I'm wondering if this is a conversation that should also happen with the Parks and Ministry, if they have any say in that, or that's something we'll do independently. But I think we, especially this summer, we saw a huge amount of dumping, you know, be it at the boat ramp or at bus shelters and all these different things. And I think the garbage and receptacle, as we discussed last meeting, is a good initiative. But beyond that, is there if we can bring some of those illegal dumping fines and penalties and approaches forward as well, that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. And I'm Director Anderson.
Thank you. Yeah, really, I guess I just echo what Director Davis said. The composting pilot project in these few small communities has been so long coming, and really on Cortez, what it has amounted to was the acquisition, I believe, of 2 recycling, sort of turn recycling bins that were put at the Clues First Nation and an educational farm for their own internal use in their own community gardens. But I'm not aware of any follow-up or monitoring or any community outreach at all. It was really just a testing of the equipment, as far as I know, not of any kind of community process. And I've all but given up on it. And I'd really love to hear what the next steps might be, because clearly there wouldn't be a bin like this on the market if it didn't work to some degree, and it doesn't take 2 or 3 years to determine the efficacy of a composter that only takes a few months to run through a batch of compost. So yeah, I'm just wondering our timeline of getting back to this program. Thanks.
With staff?
From the management report, I do understand that we are planning to report out to the board later this fall, and I think that is still the plan.
That's correct. We will be presenting the findings of the pilot to the board in November.
And
Thanks, Stephanie.
and with that, will there be some suggestions about how to make this actually a community program rather than just an equipment test?
So the equipment is actually performing really well, is what we know to date. And some of the key findings that we have established through the pilot will be presented to the board. And there will be some recommendations that will come from that.
I would love it if staff would speak with me about that as you're developing that report. That'd be great. Thanks.
Sure, we can do that.
Great, thank you. Is there any other first-time speakers? If not, I've got Director Cornfield and Director Lee a second time. So go Director Cornfield. Okay, so Director
You're
Cornfield.
mute. He's mute.
Unmute yourself, Director Cornfield. Okay, Director Lee, go ahead.
Thank you. On item 2, the garbage bins at beach receptacles. When I put this forward, I was dealing with Stories Beach mostly, which is a highway rest area owned by highways where people park. The highways used to provide garbage receptacles, but they removed that service, saying that Oyster Bay already has a rest area with beach receptacles. So Stories Beach, which has 200 people a day going to the beach on hot summer days, has no place to put garbage, and the residents are tired of picking up garbage off the beach that blows from the parking area. And the problem could be greatly alleviated by providing bear-proof receptacles that we get picked up by Waste Management. Our residents, by and large, if they contract for garbage pickup, they contract Waste Management services, and there's no reason why we couldn't have a receptacle picked up by them and alleviate all the beach garbage, especially in the summer. So, and I'm sure there's other beaches in the Comox Valley and elsewhere that have the same problem. It's really it's really an acute problem.
Okay, thank you. And I'll go back to Director Cornfield. You mentioned you had another question, do you? Okay, seeing no other questions, I'll call question on receipt of the report. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. So at this time, we're going to go in the round table. So it's 11 o'clock. So let's say everybody hook back up in 10 minutes at 11:10 and we'll start the round table.
do we have an invitation on our emails to the roundtable, or do we just stay on this connection?
Thank you. That was going to be my question too, Brenda.
You just stay here and they'll plug us into different chat rooms.
Okay.
Thanks, Doug.
Oh, joy.
I hope I get on your chat room, Ed.
Okay, directors, everybody back? Okay, at this time, we'll go to staff and Vivian's going to do a presentation and then we'll move into our breakouts.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, Vivian, over to you for the PowerPoint presentation on our solid waste management plan review.
Thank you so much, James. Before we get started, I just wanted to provide a quick update of following our June roundtable and the next steps on the construction and demolition discussion. Again, we just want to thank you for your interest and your support, and it was really well received from what I understand. So just in terms of next steps, I just want to lay that out for the board so that they have an understanding of kind of where we're hoping to be able to chart this path. So in September, we're going to be scheduling meetings with municipal staff across the region for people that are responsible for the issuance of permits for construction, renovation and demolition projects, and managing or procuring for construction and renovation and demolition of municipal assets. The intent of these meetings are going to be really to discuss why we're pursuing this as a region and where municipalities can help and timelines and who might be impacted. So we'll be identifying those stakeholders in the communities and within the respective organizations to understand the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. And then in October and November, based off of the outcome from the municipal staff meetings, we're going to be scheduling site visits to facilities involving stakeholders. So just to name a few: private landfills, the Vancouver Island Construction Associations, private recyclers, wood waste processors, and it goes on, the list goes on. And then the intent is to be able to bring a full report back to the CSWM board in December for consideration. So with that, we can get started on the solid waste plan roundtable. James, I'm sorry, Jake, I don't seem to have control over the presentation.
I'll just provide that to you. One moment, Vivian.
Thank you.
Okay, you should be good now.
Thank you so much. Okay, so this is this roundtable here is really a continuation of the roundtable discussion that we had back in June. And I'm going to provide a quick overview of the solid waste management plan, what it actually is, what we're doing under the current, how we're doing under the current plan, what the new planning process looks like, and then we're going to break out into 4 smaller groups to discuss challenges and opportunities each of you have within your communities as it relates to our overall diversion goals. So for those of you that weren't part of the current plan review, just in the way of background, the solid waste management plan is mandated by the province through the Environmental Management Act for regional districts to develop plans for the management of municipal solid waste and recyclable materials. And once the solid waste management plan is approved by the minister, it authorizes a regional district to manage municipal solid waste and recyclables in accordance with that plan. Essentially, this plan is a blueprint for the management of municipal solid waste and recyclables in the region that identifies regional issues for the next, it's a really visionary plan. So for the next 20 to 25 years, and then planning out for the next 10 years, taking into account system financing. So as shown on the graph, on the graphic on the left, it's the 5R pollution prevention hierarchy that you might be that you've seen before. So it's a tool that regional districts are required to use when looking at opportunities to improve their solid waste management system. So the order of preference in this hierarchy is for waste management at one level to only be undertaken when all other feasible opportunities for pollution prevention at a higher level has been taken. So the idea is that the adherence to the highest level of performance under this pollution hierarchy, prevention hierarchy, can encourage innovation and that investment within the industry to improve product design and reduction of waste, and Only when all the other 4 R's have been exhausted, then we look at the residual management as a last option. So this slide here is just to really show how we stack against other regional districts in BC. There are obviously variabilities in disposal rates from one region to another, which is influenced by a slew of factors, such as population density, economic activity, transient and tourist population fluctuations, distance to recycling markets, and the role that EPR programs may play in the area, and also the capacity and infrastructure currently in place within a region. So it's obviously understood that the disposal rate data don't necessarily tell the whole story, but this is a really good starting point for us as a region to know where we stand and how we can work to improve our diversion efforts. So the graphic on the right shows the disposal rates that accounts from waste from the residential sector, the institutional, commercial, and industrial sources, as well as construction and demolition and renovation activities. Just to clarify, the waste that is either reused or recycled is not included in this figure. So based on the latest data set that's available through the provincial website, the CSWM service is roughly kind of in the middle of the pack with a disposal rate of 554 kilograms per person per year, compared to the BC average of just over 500 kilograms per person per year, roughly, so 10% above where the average is. So this is just providing another granular view of the waste generation within our region dating back to 1990. So it shows the historical trend and the current status of waste disposal, both of which inform and will guide our efforts to reduce the amount of waste we create. Here we go. The blue line here is the provincial waste disposal target of 350 kilograms per person per year by 2024. And it's intended to provide that long-term goal of lowering municipal solid waste disposal across the region. So in the past 13 years, the CSW service has been averaging approximately about 600 kilograms per person per year. The increases in disposal rates are generally linked to stronger economic activities. So for example, right now, we have a really strong real estate market, which has a strong correlation to increased building demolition and renovation waste. As you saw from the C&D waste presentation back in June, following organics, construction and demolition waste is one of the highest contributors to waste in the landfill, most of which is either reusable or recyclable, averaging about 11,000 tons per year. And it's a low-hanging fruit, and we're going to be continuing to work closely with our municipal partners and industry stakeholders to remove this material from the landfill in the coming years. This next graph here is just to really show what the trends have been like here at the Cumberland landfill and up in Campbell River as well. The blue line that you see right up at the very top, that's the traffic count for 2021. And the yellow line just below that is the traffic count for 2022. So as you can see, as population increases over time, as evident by the increase in traffic count, and the mandate to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from waste continues to grow, our waste reduction efforts will be more important to really ease that pressure on our landfills. This kind of shows the same story for Campbell River. So I just wanted to use this opportunity to present a few key highlights that the CSWM service has achieved under the direction of the current and previous board. The first one being the organics waste diversion. As you know, the organics composting pilot project for the town of Comox and the village of Cumberland has been in operation since 2013. And the CSWM service has been successful in securing the $6.45 million in grant funding for the design and construction of the facility, and which will be built adjacent to the Campbell River Waste Management Center and slated for full operation next fall, which will enable curbside collection for over 30,000 single-family dwellings in Campbell River, Comox, Cumberland, and Corny. And this household organic material will be transformed into a finished compost for agricultural and landscaping. As I think we've alluded to before, there's been a few roadblocks along the way, but as Cole noted in his report earlier, we've reached some key milestones in this organics journey, and we just wanted to thank the board for your continued support on this really important initiative. Recognizing that there is a gap in organics waste management in the smaller remote communities, staff initiated a pilot composting project in Tassos and Cortez, and with the intention to collect information and data regarding the feasibility of these smaller scale food composting programs. So upon completion this fall, we are committed to providing those results to the board for a longer term solution for organics diversion in our remote communities. And over the next 4 to 6 years, the transfer station upgrades in communities of Cold River, Tassos, Sabellis will occur as the landfill close. And the design of those transfer stations would incorporate organics diversions to reduce waste hauling and landfilling from these communities. And further to that, in 2018, the province of British Columbia launched their Love Food Hate Waste campaign to really bring that awareness of food waste. And it's addressing the differences between inevitable and avoidable food waste, which has been estimated at roughly about 63% of the food being thrown out, which could have otherwise been consumed. And the CSWM service has signed on as a partner, and we have been working and will continue to focus and advocate for reduced food loss and using the Love Food Hate Waste campaign strategies in our communication and education efforts. So all of the CSWM facilities have access to a full suite of EPR programs, either on a permanent basis or as part of cleanup events. The CSWM service has really improved the promotion and increased the availability of information for these EPR programs via our website, our waste education reduction educator, and also via a number of our community events. And as mentioned earlier, we're going to continue to advocate and promote the equal access across our region here. Another key highlight is our illegal dumping program. More than 140,000 kilograms of waste has been removed from our environment since the launch of the illegal dumping program. And the success of this program can be largely attributed to the support of the board on a few key items, most notably the support on the public education strategy, the illegal dumping bylaw to ensure consistency in wording, enforcement, and fines across the region to deter illegal dumping activities. And lastly, the tip waiver program to support our partnering municipalities, community groups, and volunteers for cleanup events. Just to name a few, we've got the Thai Club of Campbell River, Comox First Nations, Pacific Wood Waste, Stop Comox, Strathcona Illegal Dumping, and Future Earthworks. So helping residents make the right choice every day is critical to achieving our waste diversion targets. And for that reason, we've really put a big focus on education, making sure that people know what, when, where, and how to recycle, reduce, divert, and compost. So educating people around the regulations and making sure that people are following the bans at the landfill of what can be recycled, composted, or taken elsewhere is also really important. So this will help make it easier for residents and businesses alike to make sure that the right waste goes to the right location. And to that end, the CSWM service is really focused on education components, in particular the school education program, which includes a variety of classroom workshops, composting education, and learning how to have a healthy pesticide-free garden, and through various cleanup events we've conducted around the region. Staff is on site to provide those one-on-one education to promote best recycling practices. And we're continuing to work on a number of new initiatives as approved by the board as part of the 2021 public engagement work plan, which includes the new Recollect app, which is already existing in Courtenay and Campbell River. This app will be instrumental in getting the organics program education going, and it'll also be a great resource for the community to search where to properly dispose of items. And then secondly, we have our education and diversion community video series that we're putting out tailored to address common themes that we hear from the community. So for example, like how we set up recycling centers at home, how to set up backyard composting, the impacts of illegal dumping. And then lastly, we are going to be really focusing on increasing our social media presence and getting our message out there, because that seems to be the most effective an easy form of communication to get our education out to the public. And then last but not least, one of the main efforts, some of the key efforts that we have dedicated majority of our time is the closure and pending closures of the old unlined landfills that have put us on a clear path to meet regulatory compliance with the Ministry of Environment requirements. The CSWM has fully closed the old landfill at the Comox Valley Waste Management Center and transitioned to a fully engineered landfill with a liner, landfill gas, and leachate management system in full compliance with the MOE regulatory obligations. And the Campbell River is going through the same right now with a phased through the final phase closure, and the closure design is currently underway. The first transfer load from Campbell River to Cumberland was actually back in April of this year. This is just a quick snapshot of all the work that has been achieved over the last 9 years. And we just, again, wanted to use this opportunity to highlight the guidance of the board and through all these initiatives. And most importantly, the board is leaving behind a legacy of environmental protection to ensure that the CSWM service is responsibly managing the waste at all of our facilities. So we have, as I've mentioned in the aforementioned slides, we've made significant progress on implementing many of the major plan components set out in the 2012 solid waste management plan over the last 9 years. There are 2 outstanding initiatives in these that the CSWM service has not completed yet, but are working towards. One of which you're well aware of is the C&D waste, which we touched on back in June. To provide a board an understanding of the complexity of the issue and the policy tools that we can utilize to regulate this waste stream. So we're starting this process now, and we'll continue to work on this into the new plan update. And then secondly, the multifamily and ICI buildings are not yet required to implement a recycling collection service. So there's a lot of work to be done in the space, which will require extensive consultation with our municipal partners, where majority of these buildings are located, in effort to develop a model bylaw for mandatory physical space allocations and service vehicle access for recycling amenities in these properties across the region. So going into the next plan update, the province came out with a new solid waste management planning guide to help regional districts and their residents and businesses to provide a really clear direction as to how they can achieve their shared solid waste goals. So as you can see here, there's 8 guiding principles for regional districts to be able to follow in developing their solid waste management planning process. This list is merely just a starting point, and it will be important for us to be able to include our locally relevant guiding principles in our updated plan. So the ministry has established a provincial solid waste management targets that sets a direction for regional districts in BC to follow and allow for performance measures at the provincial level. So these targets are adjusted from time to time to kind of reflect the realities and expectations from the public. But these performance targets are basically the most current targets that are available from the province, and these are the targets that we're going to need to work towards. So for those of you who were part of the previous solid waste management planning process, you'll notice that this next solid waste management update will look a little different from the previous planning session, which is really prescriptive in terms of ministerial approvals required at set stages and for approaches that differ from the prescribed process. So one of the distinct challenges when it comes to solid waste management that we face here in the CSWM service is just the vast geography that we cover, including small and rural communities. So the allowance for flexibility regarding the guidance on solid waste management planning is built right into this guide, focusing on the outcome rather than the process itself. So this is just a really quick overview of the planning process. There's essentially 4 key steps in this planning process here. So step 1 is really just initiating that process, which includes setting the scope, notifying the interested parties, establishing our advisory committees, and identifying the planning and consultation process. Step 2 is setting the plan direction. So this could include establishing principles, goals, targets, and gathering information, our background information, and identifying options for waste management. And then once we have that, we can evaluate those options and review them in terms of managing all forms of waste in consultation with the interested parties and determining the proposed approaches. And lastly, the advisory committee will then narrow down the potential suggestions from the public, determine the qualifications and feasibility of the proposals to form the updated plan for final consultation, and then subsequently this submission to the final plan to the minister for approval. What you'll see is that consultation is not shown as a separate step in this process, as it's undertaken across all 4 steps here. And then running concurrently with that, running concurrently with the public consultation will be a really fulsome consultation with our First Nation communities, working alongside with our Strathcona Regional District partner. Oh, shoot, sorry. So as we embark on the new solid waste management planning update, we need to seek ways to reduce the amount of waste that's going into the landfill by diverting recyclables and organics, and we need to establish new goals and strategies. So as part of that initial assessment, we need to go out to the public to seek input from residents to kind of gauge their satisfaction of the current services and determine what they would like to see in that future. And to guide that survey development, we really want to hear from the board. And I think it was the Director Cole Hamilton that brought it up earlier. And I do want to touch on the fact that it was one of the key takeaways from the 2019 roundtable. The board highlighted the importance of the timing to ensure that the newly elected board members are familiar with the plan and its significance to the service. So we're doing this now as an information gathering exercise to lay the groundwork for next fall when the new board comes in. So at this point, we're going to be breaking out into roundtables to get your take on how you envision the future of waste in the CSWM service, what those opportunities and challenges that lie ahead to reach those provincial performance targets of 80% of the population having access to organics management and a disposal rate of 350 kilograms per person per year. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jake, and he'll break you up into your respective groups.
Thanks, Vivian. I'll just need to take back control of the meeting, and then if I could just advise the directors that just bear with me here just for a couple minutes, as I need to just manually assign some of you to the groups, and And once that's done, I will press the button that will automatically kind of port you into your specific breakout group. So yeah, should just take a few minutes.
Did I hand it back over to you yet?
Yeah, I think I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Might I make a quick comment?
Yes, of course.
I was just going to say that thank you so much for the slides, and this is really useful to go through them. And I experienced a bit of the same problem with my aging eyes as Director Cornfield did, just seeing on my screen some of the detail. I was wondering if it'd be possible just for future presentations for you to forward us the slides in advance or put them on the director page. It would just be nice to have had a chance to mull this over beforehand and be able to see everything without going in like this to my screen. Great, thanks a lot.
Of course.
And Vivian, maybe I can't see anyone else that's on, or Mark. What about private facilities? Where do they fit into our solid waste plan?
So they're going to be one of obviously key stakeholders in this process, and as we are working to establish our advisory and technical committees, we will take into consideration all aspects of our stakeholders' involvement, which will include the private sector as well.
Well, I'm thinking of reducing our volumes as to what is put into private facilities, and I know of at least 3 that are existing or will be. One is just about complete in their new construction, and that is Uplands, which is going to have a certain capacity issue, especially in construction and demolition. So how do we factor that into our calculations, or do we?
Yeah, we definitely need to understand how all of these private sectors play into the overall bigger picture. One of the ways that we can glean that information is a waste management licensing program, which was an initiative that was outlined in the 2012 solid waste management plan, and it is something that we are looking to explore as well.
That was almost 10 years ago.
Yes.
Vivian, I think Jake is ready for the breakout move. So
sounds good.
I think
you broke out, James. He escaped.
That's just his complexion, Charlie.
What was that, Ed?
The only thing that broke out was his complexion.
Oh, you're bad. I will return.
so. Those directors still on. We're just assigning you to a couple of rooms here, so just hang tight.
Director Lee, have you received an invitation to join one of the groups?
Let me see. Yeah, I have. I'll join.
Okay, thanks.
So is everyone back from their respective groups?
Well, we're back, and Charlie got cut off mid-sentence, which was.
How will we ever know what he was going to say?
It was probably the only effective way of shutting him up, but.
But now we'll never know what he was going on about.
Say that when he can't hear you.
Fill in the blanks.
I just wanted to be mindful of everybody's time. I know that we had indicated that we would have a hard stop at 12:30. Is that still the case? Okay, so with 8 minutes left to go, originally we were hoping to be able to have one person kind of report out on their respective discussions within their groups, but we can either get started on that, or we can just get those notes, and I can provide a summary for the next board report, for the next board in October, so that we can have a more fulsome discussion at that point.
Yeah, I would say pass the notes on to you.
Okay, no, that sounds great. So for the note takers for each of the respective groups, if you can send me your notes, and I can send out my email address. And then I can summarize that for the next meetings. And I really want to thank everybody's time. And I hope that you guys were able to have some thoughtful, insightful conversations within your respective groups. And we're excited to embark on this new update next year.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Vivian. We'll carry on with the agenda then. Under G, bylaws, resolutions, there's nothing. Under new business, there's nothing there. There's nothing on addendum items. There's no media here, so I don't take any questions there. So at this time,
Move termination.
Second.
items, Director Lee. Any discussion or questions? Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Andy, before you go,